So we are going to do two things here. We're going to try and create a plugin that creates a WordPress settings page with the ability to save one global WordPress option with GitHub Copilot. Then we're going to erase all of our code and try to have ChatGPT do the same thing. Here we go. So we have our empty plugin right here. We have our empty WordPress local environment here with our plugin activated. So let's get started. So we're jumping into VS Code here. We are already inside of our opening PHP tag. We're going to just leave a comment. And we're going to say create a WordPress settings page and see what GitHub Copilot fills in for us. Looks like nothing. So we're going to go ahead and delete that comment. I'm going to type in add settings page. Okay, so it then tries to fill in some stuff. We've defined this plugin as cocktail plugin. We'll just redefine it as test plugin right now. So we'll go ahead and put test plugin in there and we'll like refill these here. But it seems like maybe that's going to get us a little bit of the way towards where we want to go. So let's save that and refresh here. Okay. Got to call the undefined function add settings page. I'm assuming that's because that's within the wrong WordPress hook. So if we go here to the codex, we scroll down, we look at this, it should really be inside of a hook, it looks like. So yeah, so we will hook it into the admin menu hook. So let's actually look at that. So let's see. Okay, test plugin setup menu. That's pretty cool. So again, all of these autocompletes that you're seeing here are provided courtesy of GitHub Copilot. So great. So we've got our test plugin setup menu. That worked a lot better. It's got all of our test plugin pages, etc. So if we save this and we go back to Chrome, we see that we actually do have a test plugin menu now. So, okay, so now that we click on that, we realize we don't actually have a callback for that. So if we go back to VS Code, we see we define this test plugin page. And honestly, I mean, as soon as I start typing function, it defines a test plugin page function for me that says echo hello world. So if I tab this out and I hit save, as soon as I go back here, we now have our hello world, right? So unassuming that hover, we've got our hello world. So even before I figured out the hook or the function to call, we like GitHub Copilot decided that we needed this test function because of what it had already auto-filled up here and gave us our test plugin page, hello world. So that's pretty cool. So we have a settings page now. We need to figure out how to define the actual fields on this page, etc., that we need. So let's just go ahead and I know the WordPress function that we need is something like add settings section. So we're going to go ahead and just see what GitHub Copilot gives us for add settings section. And honestly, this gives us pretty good results. Test plugin page, test plugin page, test plugin page callback, test plugin. So it takes into account what we've already written up here as our plugin name. And it tries to add everything we need for this, right? So test plugin page callback is what's going to give us our necessary settings page. So let's go ahead and move this Copilot code up here. We are going to look up the documentation for add settings section because I always forget what the actual necessity is here. I'm going to scroll down to the actual provided code section. Cool. And actually, it just outputs the content of the settings section. So we will go ahead and define this as a function here. Great. And look at that. It already defines us that we need to echo out test plugin page as a callback for that settings section. So we go here, we get a call to undefined function add settings section. Yeah, it needs to be add settings section. So I don't know whether I had that incorrect or whether GitHub Copilot did. But let's see. So yeah, so add settings section. It's saying there's a call to undefined function add settings section. So we'll see if that's a common problem. Ah, got it. So under the admin init section, we have to add the hook for the settings field, it seems. So we're going to go up here and we're going to add action. And look at that. It already knows we have to add the admin init section, the admin init action. It wants us to call our function test plugin settings. So we will go ahead and do that. We'll look over here and we'll see that, okay, great. Like we just need to do this add settings field inside of here. So we'll go ahead and do an add settings field. And we'll see what it wants us to call it. Okay, awesome. So it already has all this stuff defined for us. Test plugin field callback for the callback, test plugin for the page, which again, if we highlight this, we can see that that's already being used here and here. So all of this stuff is already configured for us. We don't have to worry about matching up slugs, matching up other things. All of this stuff is already configured because GitHub Copilot is able to understand our existing code and run with that. So we're still having the call the undefined function add settings section problem. Let me tab back over here to VS Code. So our add settings section function is still a problem. So let's look at why that's an issue. So if we look at some of this Stack Overflow code, it looks like our add settings section needs to go inside our admin init action. So we'll jump back over here. We'll do our admin init test plugin settings. So we will grab our add settings section and we will move that right down here to our test plugin settings. And we will see if that resolves our issue here. And it looks like it does. Great. So we're back to our page with hello world. We haven't actually output our settings field yet, even though we've got all the kind of setup for it. So let's see what we kind of need to do next with this. So let's just ask Copilot, right? So we've got our settings section, we've got our settings field. If we try to output a form here, we do get a form with the correct action. We get the post method, we get the settings field test plugin, which will output our settings field that we just defined right here. We get our do settings section test plugin. So let's go ahead and tab this out. We'll close our PHP tag here. And then at the end of this, we will close our form tag, which GitHub Actions GitHub Copilot just suggests as well. We'll reopen our PHP tag so we can finish out the rest of the file. But this should get us pretty close to getting our actual form up on the page. Okay, so we have a problem here. Test plugin field callback not found or invalid function name. All right, so test plugin field callback, that's the callback that actually needs to save the function, the value of the form. Again, all I did was hit enter twice and it automatically suggested this function, test plugin field callback, with the input echoed out and all of that. So all I did was hit enter twice and get ready to write new code, and it already suggested what I should do next. So let's give this a quick look over to make sure that this seems like the right kind of code to write here. Okay, echo input test plugin field. The value is get option test plugin field, which is what we're saving it to. and we're saving it there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit save and then refresh this. Okay, so we're getting pretty close, honestly. We've got a test plugin page, which is kind of our just generic output. And if we, if we remove this output here, we can get rid of that output that's kind of interfering with that, right? But we do have our test plugin field. We've got all of this stuff here. So we just need to kind of resolve the actual errors we have here. Okay, cannot modify header information, right? Header information already sent. So usually when you get a header information already sent, it means that you're trying to call a particular function or do something a little bit too early. So that's something we want to look into for sure. But if we look at, so it's specifically calling out test plugin line 43, which is this form action, right? So we're calling test plugin settings, which if we look at this, is happening as part of the admin init function. So let's look and see if there's some reason we shouldn't be calling that on the admin init function. So DP Shout, one of the best publications in the WordPress world, has an article about this. We will take a look and see. So they're registering their settings on the admin init function, but the actual output of their settings looks like it's happening on this RFI post types input renderer function. Which is happening in the add settings field call, which is part of the admin init. So we just want to make sure we're doing the same thing. So we're calling the admin init, we're calling test plugin settings, we're calling test plugin settings here, and we are calling this as part of the add settings field. I see. So this test plugin field callback, that's where we should really be putting this this function here. Right. So this is one place where GitHub Copilot actually got it wrong. So it tried to have us queue up our kind of input field, all that stuff somewhere else. We actually needed it further down there. But now, if we look at this, we're still getting our hello world here. Okay, so our test plugin page function is our add settings section. We look at our WP field article here. We have add settings section, and then our add settings field, the last parameter is settings section. So test dash plugin. So again, something that Copilot got a little bit wrong is this should be test plugin here with a dash, because that's the section right here we're defining it as test dash plugin. That's the section we're also defining it to as well. It's still not working. Okay. Test plugin page. Okay, so what are they doing on their add menu page? Add menu page hook. They're not doing anything. Okay. So clearly what you have found is that GitHub Copilot is a great sort of very advanced autocomplete tool, but you need some sort of knowledge about what you're doing to actually complete it. So I have created WordPress settings pages before. I have gone through all of the Stack Overflow threads and all that stuff, esoteric knowledge about how to get stuff in the right place. But clearly, I don't know enough to see the code on its face and recognize whether it's correct or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to move over to ChatGPT and see if we can generate a plugin through ChatGPT that will give us the correct settings output and all that stuff with our expected input. So we're going to go to chat.openai.com. Gonna say how this is good. So we're going to ask it to create a WordPress plugin with a settings page that can save a global option called test option. And let's just see what it comes back with. To create a WordPress setting, you can follow these steps. Okay, create a new folder, name it test option. Inside the test option folder, create a plugin file. Okay, so it's giving us all the various steps here. Okay, so it's giving us the header of the plugin. Okay, and then it's giving us the actual code to do the options page. All right, very cool. And the cool thing about this is it's actually explaining what it's doing underneath. So like this will create a new menu item under the settings menu in the WordPress admin panel called test option. So it's telling us exactly what it's doing. It's doing the same thing with div class wrap here. It's giving us these actual like WordPress admin classes and actually trying to output the correct information here, right? So it's giving us basically the step-by-step instruction, which is pretty cool because unlike GitHub Copilot, where it was just kind of auto-completing our code for us, and it was very smart to do what it was doing because it lives in our IDE, ChatGPT lives outside of our IDE, but it's able to pull from all of the various WordPress code pieces that are on the site. So unfortunately, it looks like it kind of timed out or something here, but we're going to try and paste in what it suggested and see how far we get. So we're going to paste in this plugin header here for test option. We are going to go down and grab this function for the settings page. Okay, very cool. We're going to grab this next function for the callback. Okay, next you need to register the settings and add fields to the settings page. Add the following code to test option.php. Okay, great. So we'll grab this, and this is where it looks like it's not super complete. So we've got this comment, add a field to the section. And we don't really have anything that goes underneath that. So I feel like it needs a little bit more. GitHub Copilot is actually suggesting some information here based on the code we've just copy pasted from GPT-3. So let's actually go ahead and see if this GitHub Copilot will assist ChatGPT and figure out the actual information here. So let's go ahead and just save all this, and we'll go ahead and refresh here. Sorry, you're not allowed to exit this page. All right, let's go ahead and go back to WP admin. We'll go to settings. We'll go to test option. Okay, so it seems like we've got a save changes button, which is pretty cool. We don't actually have an input field to actually save the option. So we're going to go ahead and ask GPT-3 to regenerate the response, and let's see if it gives us a little bit more. If it doesn't, we will actually specifically prompt it to give us an input field, because we don't have one. So what's interesting about this, I clicked on regenerate responses. And what's interesting about this is that it's giving us a completely different set of code. It's giving us functions with prefix with the word test. It's giving us activation hooks. It's giving us uninstall hooks. So this is all much more classic plugin code, but it's clearly pulling it from somewhere else. It's giving us a success message. It's giving us all sorts of markup that we didn't have before in the much cleaner implementation. But it's giving us also all these steps that tell us that we have gotten the full thing done. So I guess let's go ahead and just copy this entire thing into our plugin and see if this is a completely viable solution for what we're trying to do here. So we're going to go ahead and save. We're going to jump over to WordPress. We are going to make sure the plugin's activated. On the settings page, we've got test option. We've got, you know what? Here's our test option. We're going to hit test. We're going to save it, refresh it. It's test. We refresh it again. It's test, test. We go test 1, 2, 3. If we don't save it and refresh it, we get test as our option. We do hit 1, 2, 3. We hit save. And then we refresh it, and we constantly get test 1, 2, 3. So this is a completely working plugin based on our specification. It took 2 tries to get there, but we have this code completely working as a fully functional WordPress plugin according to our specification.